Okay, well, we are good. While we wait for that round to finish up, we're going to hop across to have a look at Tunzel versus Kibbles. Where they, again, this is another game from round 4 where they both played on lock. So I am just going to transition across to that now. Okay, so got the two players spawning in. Kibbles in the white, Tunzel in the mighty fine pink. Let's get our players up on the screens here. So we see Tunzel starting out with a bot start and a bot start coming out of Kibbles as well, and transitioning quickly into an air factory thereafter. Both players then going, if they go for the bots, going to see some very aggressive play. Looks like Kibbles is just going to be using that for some early raiding and then transitioning into heavy vehicles. So more likely a centralized push thereafter. Tunzel again doing pretty much the same, but going for a slightly heavier bot first presence there.
Are you viewing this at one times speed? I should probably check to ask, because I was making sure I'm in the same time as you.
No, absolutely. We are currently at 135, or 136, or 137.
Alright, I'll try and join you just a sec. I'm about 10 seconds ahead otherwise.
Roncat broadcasting to us there from the future.
Yeah, I oh, what amazing foresight you have, sir.
Okay, well, we see. Okay, so already the rear expansion coming out here from Kibbles. This looks to be the preferred direction for a lot of players at this point. And again, same from Tunzel as well. Both players taking very similar approaches here. Some rear expansion.
Oh, would you call that the rear? I'd call that the front. Personally, to me, that's sort of like, because it's part of your initial base complex. That's the front for me.
Well, they're both about the same distance apart. I guess I've always thought of it as the rear because the other space is so open and there's a great big divider between the two sides. So yes, just making up terminology there. That's the rear / not rear of the base. Yeah, I guess I think about the front because once it goes into the ground, it's not the base anymore. It's the
Julian go with a forward placement of radar there. Unfortunately, that is not a good substitute for scouting, and the scout and the bomber there making very light work of that expanding force. Poor choice, I think, to build a radar rather than actually go and scout properly.
It depends whether or not he's intended to push out that way. If that's just a defensive placement, that could be quite good. If he's just checking that area to make sure he doesn't get attacked, and he's forming up smartly here because he's this force incoming. He's got the planes moving around as well. Hummingbird's checking it out. But he's doing all right, and both players now pushing down into the trench area as well on the other side. So it looks like this one's going to be a lot of action. We're getting in each other's faces quite quickly here with some aggressive bot plays, but Tunzel already taking a significant eco lead there and a production lead as well.
I'm just waiting to see that. You see, Bob is now placing his factories there towards the rear, not rear of his base, and he looks like he's going quite heavily for vehicles as opposed to bots. He's used the bots for early scouting and raiding, transitioning into vehicles to try and pack a bit more punch going later on into the game, which is a fairly common theme that we tend to see here. Having said that, looking back across Julian's base, those are all bots, no vehicles to be seen, which does give him a lot more of a maneuverability advantage, but the maneuverability can only count for so much, particularly on a map like this where there are so many choke points. Unless you're really planning on making good use of the open space towards the front, not front of the base, I feel like bots are probably not quite as strong on this map as on others.
Well, the metal can get, once you leave the base area, it can actually, because it's further to some of these areas than it looks, just because of the nature of the ramps. So a bot force running around quite quickly can be quite harmful. And Tunzel indeed recognising this, we see a lot of single laser towers going up across the place to try and stop any of this bot raiding nonsense. And indeed, he's pushing surprisingly aggressively with these bot forces, and it seems to be paying off for him. We see Kibbles taking a rather more defensive stance, locking himself down into his raised platform area, and it's now Tunzel who's doing all the movement outside of the base.
Hold on, oh dear. I've just realised something. You're actually playing a different replay to me. I'm going to go and back out for a little bit. I'm just going to...
Oh, good work. Good work, Roncat. Good work.
I'm just going to shrink back into my corner now. I've completely misread things. I'm going to go.
Right, well, Roncat will be leaving us, head held in shame, and a member of event staff will be handing him the dunce's cap for the rest of the tournament. Meanwhile, we will see. We'll continue this replay here with Tunzel again pushing out aggressively. Kibbles trying to use his air now to control that, but he's going to run into that anti-air turret. Bomber makes it away. So he can still patrol the edges here, but it's already starting to look like it's turning in Tunzel's favour. Slight lead in terms of troops, decent lead in terms of economy, but more importantly, he's the one locking down all the spaces. He's got his bots out there controlling all of the metal, and Kibbles forming up this. And this is the problem with the vehicles on this map. There's a long way to travel to get to any of that metal. Bots can be everywhere. You start moving a vehicle force to push them away, they can just move around to another spot. And it's not until you've built up a large enough force of vehicles that you're really going to properly control those spaces. And we see now that Tunzel's starting to move into Sparks, which he's going to be putting into his tank force. A smart move, I think. That's going to complement them. That's going to work out quite nicely for him. Perhaps making Grenadiers in there as well might be an idea. But the Sparks, as long as they've got the buffer of the tanks, can do really good work. Oh, and a lob going up as well, actually. So bolster. So he's going to be using that to produce his docks going forward. But we see now that Kibble's really starting to struggle for eco. The forces of Tunzel really are everywhere, and Kibble's completely on the back foot here, playing fully defensive at this point. He really needs to start making some plays of his own, force Tunzel to make some moves that he doesn't want to do. And it looks like the second bot factory of Tunzel is really paying off for him here, giving him that important early edge. Kibble's now just walling up the back of his base here, trying to put a stop to these raids, but I think this is the wrong place to be walling. He's got enough turrets there to hold that location. It's really around the other side of his base that he needs to be playing defensively. And he's starting to put his tanks up there now, but at this point the lead for Tunzel is quite significant. And we see him moving out with his first initial push. It's going to do a lot of damage if it goes down the front. That commander's going to have to get involved, I think, to defend against this push here. And the forces of Tunzel as well fly around. He does have air superiority, and that's going to really help him. It's totally preventing the bots of Kibbles from making any kind of plays, despite the fact that he has some significant numbers lurking around his base there. Here we go. Finally making a push from Tunzel here. He's coming down the front. His economy is collapsing by doing this. He needs to catch up with his expansion, but his army count significantly ahead, factory count ahead, economy stronger. He's looking in a really strong position, but that can turn around quickly. A good, well-placed uber cannon from the commander here can make all the difference. Your forces can collapse quite quickly, and not quite the right place for it. There's a decent amount of Inferno is going to push that commander back. He's going to be forced to retreat, but the tanks of Tunzel not closing in there. Perhaps they should be moving around the side instead of just sticking out this engagement. But doing some decent damage on the commander though, but about to be flanked, and he's going to lose that force. But even so, still holding a mobile army lead, but perhaps not as significant an advantage as he had before. But he's building up more factories, still using that production, needs to get better at claiming some of this metal that's lurking around his base. He's got the air advantage, perhaps get an air fab out there, start to expand a bit more aggressively than he's doing. Troops are hanging back and really needs his next wave to go in, or perhaps even follow up with a docks force to be putting pressures around the flanks of Kibbles, because he's now starting to pick up his eco and he's reclaiming the metal left by that force. Now we see the laser towers, they're firing on that lone docks, but they can't get in because they've been placed too far back. They can't shoot down that ramp, so they can't get their lock on, and that docks is just going to happily sit there until someone comes over and takes it out. But nice work here from Kibbles though. Those, as we've seen before, the Sparks have real problems firing down from the edge, and those docks are running around, but they're going to get themselves trapped now, getting surrounded by the tanks. They haven't put themselves in the best position. Really, we should have brought this tank raiding force that's over here. Would have been better down there doing the attacking with the docks over on the flank, and then all of this eco would be killed. Tunzel making pushes now on multiple fronts. He's got his docks. He's had the docks raiding up the ramps. A more sensible position for them, I think. Big tank push coming down the centre now. Commander's starting to put up walls to defend. But those tanks could just switch up through this ramp, just completely ignore the commander, and go assist these docks. And that turret that was going down there to hold the flank, that's gone now. That's not going to be around to help Kibbles at all. And a lot of forces still lurking around the back for Kibbles here to protect him getting an attack that simply isn't coming. He must see on his radar that there's nothing lurking back there to attack him, and he really needs to bring his forces down to the main entrance. He's got to start taking back some of this territory. Both of them sitting very equal though in terms of economy, but just in terms of units, Tunzel is simply miles ahead. He has been winning all of the engagements, and we see the lob there firing out more docks through the tanks. Very smart play here, switching his bot factories up to Sparks that are going to help his central pushes, then using the more efficient lob to produce the docks that he's using for raiding. Some really good plays by Tunzel, making great use of some of the new units and Titans. But again, another push here from Tunzel right down the centre, and each time that commander is losing health, now just down to 27%. He cannot continue to hold like this. He needs to get behind those walls, needs to get into a more defensive position as quickly as he can. Tunzel just needs to keep. It's just going to have to keep throwing units here, and that commander is eventually going to be driven back up the ramp. And at that point, it's going to be all over for Kibbles. And it looks like the commander now pushing out. Really, really poor choice here, and he's going to go down. And there it is, Tunzel claiming the victory there against Kibbles. Really excellent play by Tunzel. Just understood the map perfectly. Kept Kibbles on the back foot throughout. Despite the fact that both players had nearly identical opening builds, Tunzel just used the troops that he had better. Absolutely superb bit of play by him. So that was Tunzel versus Kibbles, and we're now going to start setting up for the next round, round 5.